I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfillment. There are meetings happening all the time in your organization that you're not a part of, but you might be the subject of. Perhaps it's a WhatsApp exchange with a group of staff, a group you didn't know existed. Perhaps it's a conversation between two people that remain behind on a virtual call after everyone else has logged off. Perhaps it's the classic coffee corridor conversation in the car park outside. The reality is there's a significant gap between what leaders believe they have created culturally when it comes to psychological safety and what the reality actually is. And these conversations are indicative of actually establishing what is the reality here. Now, I've done a previous episode explaining what psychological safety is and warning signs, etc., to look out for. So I'm conscious not to recap all the stuff that's already there. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes. This episode is slightly different, but it's so pertinent at the minute because in the work I'm doing with senior teams, particularly at the highest echelon, the executive teams, the SLTs, there is an evident disconnect in the level of psychological safety that exists as against what the leader believes exists. So let's quickly recap on what psychological safety is. It's that shared belief that you can contribute, you can have an opinion without fear of criticism, ridicule, or some form of attack. That doesn't mean that you're all in full agreement every time you have a meeting, a discussion, a strategic debate about direction of travel, etc. But it does mean that everyone feels like they have a voice, a right to contribute without being met with aggression or criticism, being shouted down and do it our way. This is the way we're doing it. So there's lots of things, warning signs in the previous episode: groupthink, radio silence, blind obedience to the boss, to the highest paid person in the room. So let me ask you this question. When you lead a meeting, you finish and it is radio silence, is your first thought, great, everyone's happy, job done, move on? Or do you actually think, hang on, are we misaligned here? And again, listen to that earlier episode and all those warning signs are discussed. But for me, silence does sometimes mean everybody's happy. It would be wrong to say it didn't. However, there are situations where there is a subtle shift, a raised eyebrow, and that silence is something that we need to explore because it is masking over frustrations that are ultimately going to compromise people's performance and ability to execute on the strategy, and equally their fulfillment within their role. What's interesting on this particular phenomenon is that the changes in the way we work are making it far harder for the individual leader to determine what silence means and do we or do we not have the psychological safety. So what do I mean by that? Well, we used to all meet face to face in a room, and those subtle shifts in body language, people sometimes wear their emotions very much on their face. That might be you, where if you're upset, frustrated, people can easily see it. So it was much easier in that environment to, Samantha at the back didn't look very happy, I'm going to pick up with her, or Andy over here. There was definitely a moment where I saw on his face he was frustrated. Now we have a lot of hybrid meetings. We have a lot of people dialing in, and it's much harder to be able to sense check the emotional feeling in a meeting that's virtual or hybrid. I think it's important to stress that no team has 100% psychological safety. It'd be deluded to think that. It's a constant work in progress, and relationships can get frayed and need repairing, and work needs to be done. But this is very much about identifying the gap. I want you to be able to say, hand on heart, yes, it's there, as opposed to, I think it's there, but maybe your people are having those conversations we alluded to, going, oh, once again, this didn't happen. I was going to speak up, but what's the point? We don't want that apathy. We don't want that intimidation where people are like, well, you should have said it. Well, I don't feel comfortable saying it. If I'd have said it, he would have shouted me down, or she would have shouted me down, or the leader would have shouted me down. And so it's all about identifying the gap, because we all know to get the best out of our people, everyone's got to feel safe to contribute, want to contribute. Otherwise, there's blind spots everywhere. You're not an island. You can't make every decision, develop every aspect of strategy, and execute every element of it. It's impossible. You want your people adapting, being agile, reflecting, engaging, challenging, changing course, adapting to the intelligence they receive, evolving strategy as a consequence. But that will not happen if half the room are staying silent and saying, well, I'll pick this up with my little group on WhatsApp afterwards. Can you believe this? Can you believe that? I'll talk about this in the car park. That is not what we want. And please don't think I'm being a doom monger saying that's existing everywhere. It's not. But if I said, do I see a varying level of psychological safety in the organizations I work in? Of course I do. Do I see certain differences between perception and reality? Of course I do. But the key unifying theme is there's often a difference in every organization I've been in between how psychologically safe the leader thinks the staff are and how safe they tell me they think they are. That's the gap we're closing here. So let me run a simple diagnostic with you. I'm going to put 3 scenarios, 3 tests to you that I want you to genuinely sit and reflect on. And I think the answers will be quite insightful as to what currently exists in the environment that you lead. So test number 1, think of a time when someone told you something you did not want to hear. Not in your annual performance review. I'm talking about that organic, off the cuff, you're in a bit of a staff meeting, somebody pushes back, somebody challenges, somebody says something that you don't necessarily agree with. Now, the first element of this test is, can you think of a recent example? So at the very first hurdle, we might stumble if you can't think of a time when somebody was willing to challenge some element of what you were saying or some element of your proposed strategy or vision. Now, if you can, good. That's a good first step and sign that actually there is a little bit of psychological safety and people feel comfortable to challenge me. So the next part of the test is, how did you respond? Were you abrupt, dismissive, aggressive? Did you belittle them? Did you crush their suggestion? This is really important intelligence for your wider team. If you were able to accept it, take it in good grace, take it as it's hopefully intended, that we're trying to evolve the strategy, make things better, debate, discuss, perhaps you evolve the strategy as a consequence, or perhaps you concluded, let's agree to disagree, I value your feedback, but no, we're still going to go this way. Your team and that individual are watching to see, is it worth being the person that puts the head up, sticks the head above the power pit and challenges you? So that's the first scenario I want you to reflect on. The second test I want you to reflect on is exactly what happens when mistakes are made within your team. Now, in episode 22, we talk about the fact we're all human. We need to look at mistakes as learning opportunities, disseminate what went well, what didn't go well, what brought us to this point, what are the subsequent learnings, and let's cascade that across the people that we need to share the insights and the wisdom as a result of that mistake. But the nuance in this is, how quickly do you become aware of significant mistakes? So on one side of the equation, something's happened. That individual is very quick to come to you and say, boss, sorry, this has happened. I've made a mistake, or something's gone wrong in my team. I'm on it. I have a plan. I wanted you to be aware. Now, that is a positive sign that people are willing to come to you, cards on the table. They feel safe to acknowledge the mistake. They're hopeful that you can help perhaps tailor a strategy and a solution to remedy that mistake. But here's another scenario. If you're sitting there frustrated going, why did I only just hear about this? Why did nobody tell me at the time? Why is this escalated and is now so much of a bigger problem? Because I could have helped course correct or resolve it if I'd have been known. Now, that is indicative of people who are fearful. They're either going to put their head in the sand and hope the problem goes away before they have to make you aware, or they're desperately hoping that they can resolve it, remedy it, and by the time they make you aware, look, this happened, just letting you know, but it's all been fixed. So just sit and reflect on that. Do you tend to find out about mistakes at source immediately? Good sign. Or are you regularly frustrated at the length of time it's taken for something to arrive at your door? Very, very interesting intelligence in terms of how psychologically safe your people feel. Now, the third test, I need to be careful I don't go too deeply down a rabbit hole because it involves cameras on virtual attendees in meetings. Now, as A quick tangent. I am a huge and very passionate advocate that everyone should have the camera on because it's akin to turn your camera off for me is akin to being in a face-to-face meeting and having your back to the rest of the room gazing out of the window. That would be very unusual. And you would immediately say, somebody here has something going on. They're disengaged from the meeting. They've got the back to us. They're looking out the window and they're not saying anything. Now, I know that sounds a bit trite as an analogy, but it's important. And also, it has an impact on the other attendees. If someone's about to speak in a face-to-face meeting and several people get up and go and grab a coffee from the back of the room, then you immediately feel undermined and a little bit vulnerable, going, well, why are they not listening to what I have to say? So those sort of behaviors that would never happen face-to-face are becoming more prolific in hybrid virtual meetings. That being said, bringing it back to psychological safety, I would encourage everybody to have the cameras on because right back to the first points as a leader, you're trying to read the room. Well, it's absolutely impossible to read somebody's connection and level of psychological safety if the camera's off. So that is another key start point. Put them on, makes your life easier. If you're insisting on making it optional, then as soon as the camera goes off, well, it's an immediate warning sign to follow up. If somebody's genuinely engaged and wants to contribute, they're not going to turn the camera off. So why are they turning the camera off? It's another warning sign for you to investigate. So for the meetings you hold, what's your policy? Do you allow people to make the choice? Okay, no problem. Let's follow that thinking through. When people are allowed to make the choice, who's got the cameras off consistently? Again, this is all about reflective prompts, intelligence for you to say, I need to follow that up. I need to have a conversation and understand why are they doing that. So as I wrap this episode up, I want to just give you a scenario, give you permission almost to do something that will undoubtedly feel uncomfortable. It does for all of us, but is probably the elixir of actually driving home true psychological safety. And it's your personal performance, your actions and words. Now, I'm not saying you should lose the courage of your convictions and flip and flop on decisions regularly without any clear sense of this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what I want to deliver. What I'm saying is don't be that leader that feels it's a sign of weakness if you ever course correct, or indeed do a complete 180 and change direction on a decision or a policy. You want the highest performing people working with you and around you. I'm sure you want the highest performing leadership team. So if you're going to get genuine high performers, it stands to reason that at times they will have a better idea than you. At times they will have a better suggestion for course correcting a strategy that perhaps isn't working as well as it could. What do you do in that moment? Do you withdraw, become defensive, let your ego come to the fore? Well, if I show weakness here, then she or he's got one up on me and they're showing me up and blah, blah. If you're going down that path, irrespective if you feel you've done everything right, actions and words will always be interpreted by your team, and they will interpret it as there's no point challenging. If I do challenge, it's perceived as an attack. It doesn't go down well. You can see the defensive reaction of the leader. So why do I want to commit career suicide by being the person that is constantly getting offside with my boss? And that leads to two things. It leads to them becoming underfulfilled, lacking fulfillment, which then impacts their performance. So you're not getting the best out of them. And I suppose one scenario is they just cruise, do what they need to do, but they're not really driving innovation and suggestion and challenging things because they become a bit apathetic. Or worst case scenario for you, they're like, this is not the environment for me, and they leave. And I've seen both of those scenarios play out. So what am I saying? Well, then if you flip that round, just be comfortable. Trust your gut. Actually, what this individual's saying to me, it's a better idea. And be absolutely 100% okay with saying, do you know, that's actually a much better idea. I really like that. Let's tweak accordingly. Or I love the elements of what you're saying, A, B, C. Let's incorporate that into the strategy. I think we'll pause on D and E at the minute, but we can adapt. I think it's great feedback. Thank you. So if you are positively embracing the feedback, showing a willingness to change your mind completely or partially, your team is emboldened. They're like, great, my leader listens, values my contribution. I feel it. I want to be a part of it. They're on the toes. They're excited to move things forward. They're performing optimally, and they've got a high level of fulfillment. So not rocket science, not complicated, but those prompt questions, if you fell on the wrong side going, right, well, I don't respond well when people have made mistakes. I don't respond well when people challenge me. Make the change. You're not set your leadership style in stone. you can change it today. You can change it ahead of the very next time you interact in that forum that came to mind, or with that specific individual that came to mind when I was asking you, how do you respond to feedback? So I hope this has served you. It's an important topic. It's not just a tick box. This isn't about, the classic cultural, we've got nice mission statements, visions, nice lettering on our reception wall. It's the substantive feeling that your staff have. We don't want those WhatsApp group conversations. We don't want those corridor whisperings. We don't want that car park. Have you got a minute? Can you believe what's going on? We want people to contribute whenever they want to contribute in the meeting. And if there's silence, well, then that is a genuine recognition of, yeah, everybody's happy because no one's saying anything, as opposed to you second guessing and thinking, are they silent because they're unhappy? No, because we've got the high level of psychological safety. If they're unhappy, they'll speak. If they're silent, they're happy, and we all move forward. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Continue to ping the feedback in. Lots of ways to get in touch. hello@thelonelyleader.co.uk, DMing via LinkedIn. And as I continually mention, please check out the Lonely Leader Academy via the link in the show notes. Our virtual leadership development platform. The community is going from strength to strength. It's wonderful to see the diverse array of members from countries all around the world. The fundamental principles of high performance, leading with real impact and truly optimizing your performance and fulfillment, both professionally and personally, are the flow of what we have built. That is what we are striving to do. We're talking about clarity. We're talking about health and well-being. We're talking about developing resilience. We're talking about deep dives into how we give and receive feedback. We're talking about principles that help remove physical and mental stress. We're looking at journaling. We're talking about imposter syndrome that everyone wrestles with. We're really going deep within a series of modules and lessons and a lot of reflective questions that are proving to be highly impactful. That's the bit of the feedback I'm really enjoying, that the reflective questions are prompting real change. And that is the mission. As I say time and time again, leadership on the outside must always start within. And the reflective questions are my way of encouraging you to look within. So the link's in the show notes. The founding member offer is still live. It's just £9 per month. That price is frozen for life, irrespective of what we do with prices in the future, for as long as you remain a member. Check it out. Check the welcome video out. Dive in. Your only exposure is £9. It's about $12 US, £9 UK. If you don't like it, it doesn't resonate, you can cancel anytime. There's no contract. Wish you the best of luck with your continued journey of growth and development. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.